Greetings! My name is William Morris. I am a patent attorney. I work mostly with software inventions. And if you're like me, one of your pet peeves is dealing with subject matter eligibility rejections. So what if I were to tell you that you may never have to worry about subject matter eligibility again? That actually is the promise and goal of a new program the Patent Office is rolling out. As it happens, I don't think it's going to achieve that goal, but that doesn't mean that there's no benefit to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the program, explain what it is, how it works, explain how it's supposed to work in order to allow you to avoid dealing with subject matter eligibility rejections. Then I'm going to talk about how I think it's more likely to work in practice, and how, despite its potential shortcomings, you can get, or how I think you can get, the maximum benefit, since it's a new program and neither I nor anyone else really has any experience with it yet. So, anyway, let's start with what the program is. The program is a deferred subject matter eligibility examination, and the way it works is if you have a patent application and you have a non-final rejection that includes both subject matter eligibility, so your 101 abstract idea, law of nature, that kind of thing, rejection, and it also has non-subject matter eligibility rejections like your standard 102, 103, the Patent Office may issue an invitation to you to say, would you like to participate in the program? And if you say yes, then you do not have to reply to the 101 rejections. The subject matter eligibility rejections. I guess if you've got non-subject matter eligibility 101 rejections like a statutory double patenting, you have to deal with that. But subject matter eligibility, you don't. And if you say yes, you don't have to reply to them. They don't go away. So if you get a final rejection and they haven't been dealt with, then you still have to deal with them. But you don't have to say anything. You don't have to spend the time going through and saying, yes, here's why, step 2A, step 2B, Alice this, DDR that. So you basically avoid having to respond to any subject matter eligibility. Now, why did I say that this is something that could help you avoid subject matter eligibility rejections? Well, the goal of this program was actually launched based on a letter from Senators Tillis and Cotton. And here's what they said about it when they said the letter and they said, we'd like you to launch this program. Based on our discussion with prior Patent and Trademark Office officials, our understanding is that in years past, some examiners sequenced their examination of applications so that they first examined all grounds of patentability under sections 102, 103, and 112 before examining for compliance with grounds of eligibility under section 101. Our conversations with former officials suggest that for examiners using this sequenced approach, applicants rarely received a rejection on grounds of patent eligibility. This is because by bringing claims into compliance with sections 102, 103, and 112, examiners inevitably brought the claims into compliance with section 101 as well. So that's the way it's supposed to work. You get a rejection. It has subject matter eligibility as well as other rejections. You deal with the other ones, and those will add enough concreteness, specificity, practical application, whatever it is, to deal with those other rejections that the 101s will disappear too. That's the way it's supposed to work. So I'm skeptical. Excuse me. I am skeptical because I have had many cases where you deal with the 102s and 103s and 112s if there are any, and there's still 101s, and those can be a real impasse that you might even have to go to the appeal board for. So I am skeptical that you will inevitably, as they say, overcome the 101s, and I think it's just as likely that you will get the rejections, deal with the 102s, 103s, not say anything about the 101s, then get a final, and now you just have to deal with it. But you haven't seen what the examiner is going to say. So one of the reasons why you might want to reply to the 101 rejections is you can lay out your arguments and see how does the examiner reply to your grounds for traversing the subject matter eligibility rejections, and you wouldn't have that information if you simply ignored them. So that's kind of why I think this program is unlikely to live up to its expectations, but that doesn't mean that there's no benefit to it, because let's face it, dealing with 101 rejections is hard. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of drafting. It requires a lot of just legal work. And if you don't have to do that work, that's obviously going to allow you to go through much faster. You at very least would have less prosecution history, so there's some certainly benefits to it. The way I think it would make sense to maximize those benefits is to limit I wouldn't say participation, because there's no downside to accepting. You can still reply, you just don't have to. But I would say limit the cases where you take advantage of it by not responding to the 101 rejections to cases where you're pretty confident you don't need to. And the way I'd find those cases is by an interview. I'd say, hey, examiner, here is my potential amendment. Here are my arguments for it. What do you think? Is this going to get us over the 101s? And if the examiner basically says yes, and sometimes they do, then I'd say great. Let's not worry then about the 101s. It's a calculated risk, so obviously examiners, they might not remember what you said during the interview, what was convincing then. You might want to see how they reply to it. But, I think if you're confident that you've got solid arguments that you discussed during the interview, but you decide not to put into the office action response, you can save some prosecution history. You will have gotten some input from the examiner, so you'll have an idea, okay, does it make sense to appeal? Do I do an RCE if you get a final rejection later? And you can save the time that's required to actually pull those things down on paper, as well as avoid having the prosecution history that would be required again for going through all the analysis and going through everything for those 101 rejections. So anyway, there it is, deferred subject matter eligibility. I am not as sanguine as Senators Tillis and Coons, but at the same time, Tillis and Cotton, not Coon. I apologize for that. But at the same time, I do think that there's some potential here. I think it might be good in the right case, and I think if you are judicious about it, you maybe can end up being more efficient and saving some prosecution history in the cases which otherwise you'd have to go through a lot of work on the subject matter eligibility. So there you have it. I hope you have good luck. If anyone has any experience with it, obviously let me know. I'd be interested in hearing it. Otherwise, good fortune and patents to all of you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.